Party people, forgive me. Party people, I'd like to welcome you back to class. As we like to begin all of our episodes, I just want to share my utmost appreciation to everybody who contributes their time, their energy, their attention to participating in these episodes. Your attention, everything that you give me, that you share to this community, I'm thankful for. We're building something so big here, something so real. It's hard for me to be afraid anymore. It's hard for me to be ashamed as to slow growth. It's hard for me to not truly trust this process that I know is taking the exact amount of time that it needs to impact the right people. I'm just so glad that there's the few of us that are here right now, the 120 maybe of us that have bought in, starting to understand the message, and hopefully I'm providing you a little bit of value in your life. And if not, value that's applicable, hopefully you're just getting some entertainment off watching a dude go crazy, just put his mind and pour his heart to the world. But beyond all of that, we have a lot to get into today. This is a part 2 that I know you guys have been waiting for. This is a part 2 that I've been very passionate, very excited to make. So let's really get into this shit, huh? Oh my goodness. Okay. Forgive me. I know it looks crazy. We're not doing any rituals. We're not sacrificing any lambs. We're not calling in any demons, bro. This is just me giving my best interpretation, or at least the one that makes sense in my mind, of the society that we live in. And I was going to give you this episode first, but I knew that I wouldn't truly be able to at least create a foundation for you to hang on to and anchor yourself to without this making you go absolutely crazy. So we did last week as the episode speaking about the foundation, the first rule of 3, me kind of initiating that thought in your mind and giving you a chance to understand how important that is in this society. And then understanding how we, the people, could take responsibility of that social rule of 3 to create a conscious community that we can be proud of and everybody can participate in and express themselves authentically within. Now, let me tell you about a system of the same rule of 3, but what happens when the people give up their power, give up their responsibility to a group of individuals who cares about nothing but their own self-interest, and in caring about their self-interest before that of the collective that they swore to take responsibility over, they bastardize very, very essential and important institutions of human life, toxifying not just the society, but the world that we live on and every interaction of individuals, destroying our chance at developing a future worth building towards and actually committing to in this present day. So I know there's a lot of crazy going around. There's a lot of confusion, a lot of ignorance being spewed around. But I hope that this message that I'm hoping to share to you today gives you something to at least anchor yourself with, like I was saying earlier. I don't want you to go crazy attempting to address all the problems in the world. I just want you to understand that so many of these systems are feeding off of each other. They're playing off the ignorance of one, they're playing off the abuse of one, they're playing off the exploitation of another, and pimping the people out in a circle or in cycles that they may never gain the awareness of, or at least enough awareness to be able to separate themselves from, actually build an independent identity. But I love you people, bro. I love regular people. And I hate seeing regular people get completely pimped out by a system that has done nothing for them, and they continue to fear every single day like they're obligated to participate and to sell their souls for. I know it's blunt, but to put it simply. So hopefully you're allowing me to explain this chart to you if you haven't already attempted to explain it to yourself. And we can start figuring out from last week's episode how we can take a foundation of a positive community to this week's episode, understanding the reality that we live in and merging those two together to create a pathway towards the reality that we don't only desire to live in, but one that we need to live in for ourselves and future generations of genuine conscious souls on this earth. Let's get ready to get into this shit. Bang. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to read right here what it says. Hopefully you can read it. Hopefully I'm not blocking this, because I am the the producer, the cameraman, and the editor, and the talent. So we're all doing this in one go. Hopefully you can read what this says right here. If not, I'll read it to you. This is the highway of souls. If I had an editor, I'd put some applause right there. But let's get into this. I don't like bouncing around the question. I like getting straight to the point. This is why I'm the worst person to go on dates with. All right. So let me explain to you first this initial triangle, because this is going to be the most important thing to understand, and this is the connection that it brings to the last episode. If you remember in the last episode, go ahead and tap back on it if you want to reference it. I made the first triangle, and I was describing that the inside of the triangle was the individual, and the outside of the triangle was that individual's relationship to the environment or the society that they live in, or how their inner energy was utilized by the outside of society. Now, I need you to expand a little bit in your own brain and to think now, instead of this initial black triangle being one individual conscious soul, imagine that the black triangle is society, all of regular people in society. But in this triangle, it's all broken up and scattered and disorganized because the people are so individual and so traumatized, they can't build communities. So we're running on this individualism, and this triangle, forgive me, beyond the triangle, or these little pillars right here, are the systems that prey on that individuality or on the individualism of the people in this system. And because these systems are run by powers higher than us, powers that we do not even know or can hold accountable, they are allowed to bastardize each of these essential systems of humanity to benefit them at a very disadvantaged rate, more so than accommodating the living and the well-being of the average human being. We don't hold them accountable as regular people, yet they have the responsibility of writing the laws and holding themselves accountable to not abuse the power that we freely give them. They don't even fight for that power anymore. We wake up every single day and give more. We get squished more. We get less of the blanket in the bed as our partner wraps themselves up completely in the blanket and it's freezing. And instead of saying, hey, ripping some blanket back for us or making a scene about it, we just sit there and ball up and say, well, at least I get to sleep on the bed tonight and I don't have to sleep in the closet or on the floor. Wake up, people, bro. Come on. The reason why this system is like this is not because elites, I mean, yes, of course it is. but they're taking responsibility for the power of the people that the people neglect so that people can be included in society. Because the people are too afraid of banding together and in their struggle to remember that they are not worth less. They are not devalued the same way that this system wants them to believe they are. They are not incomplete. They are not worthless or worth less than they deserve. Just because the system has decided, oh, the social system is built this way and everybody below here needs to hate themselves and everybody below that needs to want to themselves. That's where we have to wake up as people and wonder why we are being born into systems where we're already from the jump broken. We're already lacking. We're already in this lack mindset, this desire to be too desperate, not having enough, not being at peace with who we are on the inside. So we have to go in society and give ourselves to a system that we don't even trust. We don't even know who runs it and what their intentions are for this society. But obviously we can see it. So let me go ahead and break this down to you in simple terms as possible, because you'll probably have to go to 25 different places to get the amount of information I'm giving you right now. So if you allow me the honor, I will share with you the matrix that we live in. And hopefully, those of us in this community and those of us in the world who care about human beings and regular people can create a movement or a change that's actually going to inspire genuine care for humanity in this life. Hopefully, during our lifetime. Initial triangle. These are the bastardized systems that the people depend on. I'm not going to give too much time into them. I know I've given a little bit of an explanation in the last week's episode, but I definitely don't want to give too much time to them. I want to give more time to the issues or the consequences that they create in our society. But we can go back for just a refresher, because that rule of 3 is super important. And the rule of 3 of the matrix that we live in right now is organized religion, which bastardizes your soul, taking away salvation from you so you can depend on them for not only your sense of identity, but for which is your persona, but also for how you act in this world, creating this world into a test that you're going to be judged on by somebody after you die. And I have no hate for Christians or, religious individuals, but when you make somebody so afraid of what's going to happen in a time where nobody knows exists yet, to get them to not act fully as their human being on earth and understand themselves and how they can cope and how they can be human and the depths of their soul in a human body, when you suspend that for fear, sorry, bro, that sounds kind of cultish to me. But that's how this system has decided it preys on the soul, by the people giving up their power first. So this is like, you don't even have to get abused into this. You just have to get gaslit by a couple of strong flying monkeys, a couple of good religious businessmen that convince you that you cannot live without this. And if you live without this, then who are you? You're going to hell. You better be afraid. The devil's going to catch you forever, bro. You didn't do anything wrong, but the devil's going to get you. I just want you to know that. If you don't do everything that I say, and then when you do come to this side, you have to do even more of the things that I say to make us feel comfortable. Those of us who are also very, very afraid of something that we aren't confirmed in. We're going to break it down to patriarchy first, which is domination of the mind. And the reason why I had to double up and include the military-industrial complex too is, but not say that it's as direct to the source as the patriarchy, is because the military-industrial complex is a direct expression of patriarchal masculinity through a social system at a countrywide level. This is how empires compete through a patriarchal dominated world, through war, through bestiality. This video may get demonetized because I said that. Through the beastly nature. The other word is something completely different. And through that ferocious, like overly masculine expression, this is where the military and the war and arms, that's where all that comes from. I'm not saying that women aren't capable of it. I'm not saying that it's only a man thing. I'm just saying that is a direct result of a system that only prioritizes the desire of men and how they choose to express themselves. Organizing ourselves in such fashion to make it seem like it's worthy, it's dignified, but it's really just boys going to beat down on each other on different parts of the world, and then also to abuse the women and the children that they dehumanize in the process. But these two systems give our lost boys in the center here, our individuals in the center here, who are hating each other and projecting all their trauma and not healing and getting in cliques and all this bullshit. This is how they create a system in your mind to believe that, you know what, even though none of this makes sense, this is orderly. This, as a people, we operate in this system. This is the organization of the family. This is the organization of the tribe, of the team, of the collective, of the troops. This is the organization. And it preys on the mind because the mind, it feels, the soul in the mind is trying to, it's an infinite being trying to use a tool of infinite capacity. And just in attempting to understand the use of the mind and the depth of the mind, it's so difficult that we would like to create systems for ourselves to give us some sort of power, some sort of control over that infinity. But when that control is limited to ignorance, limited to one-sided expression, we don't allow ourselves an opportunity to truly understand the fullness or allow the universe, the universal power of love to transcend the systems we create, to actually make sure that we aren't in a position to abuse so much of that power and to make abuse of power such a normalized structure and system in this society. And the third pillar of our bastardized systems is capitalism. And I know I speak about anti-capitalism so much on here, and it's probably something that you're tired of or you associate with woke, but at the end of the day, the people are going to work. The people have the passion. That's just natural in the people. But when the people are forced to depend on what they're passionate about and depend on the gifts that they naturally have internally as a means to survive, you take the passion from the work. You take the passion and their ability to commit to and choose purpose out of their hands. And that's when the suffering begins. That's when the exploitation is happening to the physical body. That has to be, and of course this is personal perspective, I don't want to be diagnosing anything, but the depression and the anxiety is coming from the exploitation of the body, the inability for the body to be able to decide when it works, how effectively it works, how it chooses to work. Forgive me. Just got scared for a second. Heard some knocking somewhere I shouldn't have heard it before. But back to what I was saying. Capitalism preys on the body. Oh, hold on. Forgive me, I had to edit out a part real quick, but we're back. Our third system, our third institution that has been bastardized by the powers that be is capitalism. Now, I just want to remind you that there's nothing wrong with people who aren't able to work in an exploitative system. Let's just get that straight. In a world where we can properly allocate the funds and the energy and the abundance of the world and the people who have the energy to work and create that, we can lean on one another to always have. And that's where scarcity goes out of the way. But when we live in a world where the executives, the elite at the top, not only exploit the power and the wealth of the general public, but they also hide their own wealth and hoard their own wealth. I say their own because in a capitalist system, it's ownership based and isn't entitlement based, but that's something we could also address. But when they're also cutting off the giant cakes that they have stored up for themselves and their future generations, and hold them off for a future time that's never going to exist, while also continuing to play the game on regular people who are putting their lives, their soul on the line to make a few crumbs, not even get a slice of the cake, just a few crumbs off the floor. That's when you start exploiting the physical body. The people aren't able to choose their purpose. And it even goes deeper than the people being able to choose their purpose, but it goes into the people not having time to understand themselves and how to properly accommodate themselves. And in that sense, they can understand the gifts, the unique gifts and talents they came to this earth to bring to their communities. And in that, they can choose the communities and share those gifts effectively on their own body clock schedule with those communities, and share with the communities that appreciate them the most and support them the most in their process of becoming. So they aren't dependent in their livelihood on meeting an identity that they've created, but they can depend on the people who they support to continue to hold them up even in times where they aren't able to provide as effectively as they know they can. Because we're human beings at the end of the day. And we can't create a system that accommodates slaves or human robots when we are human beings who need to be accommodated naturally, need to be accommodated holistically, need to be treated outside of a system that exploits us, even if a system is going to use us. And if we, on such a grand level, are allowing ourselves to not only give taxes to the same people who are exploiting us, but give our time and our energy and our commitment to this American dream that we keep on buying and never cashes out, why can't we choose to bring that energy in? Why is our energy and our value and our worth just so low or so below the point when we can decide that we are the ones, we are the worth that is being exchanged and pimped out? And it's the people who regulate us that are telling us that we need to get validated by them first. That's the only link holding us to a system that doesn't complement us as much as we complement or add to it. The system is running on our work and their minds only care about themselves, and themselves is 1% of people. 1%. 5% maybe in a world of 8 billion. And there's no way that we as a regular people can stand up to that. If that standing up means not being exploited at work, if that standing up means standing up for our fellow neighbors and people who live on the streets, people who are being forced to live in their cars because they cannot continue to keep up with a system that is racing with artificial intelligence and high-tech standards. Like, we as a regular people have to start realizing that if there's no workers in the system, there is no system, period. All these people don't work harder than you. These people organize better than you. These people network better than you. These people have less emotions than you do. So they're able to do all that they do without caring about you, yet including every single bit of your energy. And the thing they give you in return is social validation. I can't wait for the day that shit's not enough anymore. I can't wait for the day that you guys are so broke you can't pay your basic bills and nobody in your neighborhood can pay any of their basic bills, and you finally have to wake up to this shit and realize it's too late, bro, because you just voted in 6 more people, bro, who are going to just keep ruining your life. But that's the American dream, isn't it? You keep fucking sleeping until the time you wake up and you realize that you've been living an American nightmare the whole time. You're welcome, bro. Let's get to work. Okay. Now that we've established the initial triangle, we need to speak about the kinds of people that are created, and I like to call these the consequences of these specific systems. Because remember, you got to look at these systems as like pimps that are all in a trafficking network playing together, and they have the entire unconscious population of the world to play with, to barter with, to utilize, and to exchange with each other as a means of better creating lifelong, multi-generational consumers of these systems. Not just food, not just money, not just experience, consumers of the system. Because if you consume the system, then you become the system. You express the system. You create validity to the system. But the second you stop drinking the Kool-Aid, the second that cake that they're feeding you stops making your stomach feel good and it starts to really hurt you finally because you're realizing that you want to be healthy now, that's when they can't you can't manifest this anymore for them. We have to create a system together at that point. And that's where the point in time they don't want us to come to. And when I keep saying they, I keep saying them when I'm relating to these like ultra rich, because I don't know who they are. But all I know is that they're not human to me. If they're able to create such a system, such a world that we have to live in, where humanity is so not deprioritized. I hope that's a word. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But it's so just, humanity is so insignificant because profits and power and ownership and control is just so much more enticing to this small group of alien warlords than the humanity of the people who create this reality for them, even in the slightest bit. I'd like to begin with the three types of people that this system creates. And the first one is going to be the ignorant. And I call them the ignorant not because they're any more stupid than just the general class of humanity, because this really ends up being about 70%, 80% of humanity. This the general populace. More times than not, these are the people that invalidate the people who are actually experiencing real life because they're just comfortable enough. I'll call this like the middle class group of humans. These people are just comfortable enough, just validated, just accepted enough to participate in all the positive workings of society, have their own little problems that they need to deal with, and then invalidate everybody else who goes through anything more real than them because they refuse to admit that life can get more complex than what they've been fortunate enough to receive. And the reason that, forgive me, the reason why that's so important that this is such a huge chunk of people, this is the molasses that sits inside all of the social change that could occur. These are the people that are afraid to let go of the system that is because they don't believe that they have an identity yet, or they're too afraid to let their current identity die in the system that is to create or to move towards a system that could be. And by a system that could be, at this point, I mean any damn system, because any system we can create together actually has an opportunity of complementing the people in it, more so than us letting other people decide what means enough to us. Because apparently a 3-day weekend, apparently universal healthcare, apparently general housing for everybody doesn't matter to a small group of people. And this molasses corner, although they're socially acceptable and socially validated, they are allowing a ruling class of people who's created a system for enough people to be comfortable in to continue to exploit every other area, every other surface they can, just because they are impacted by it. For politicians, for capitalists, for like this is the most important group of people to manipulate because they're already comfortable living like this. And as long as you can get them to turn against the people who are crying more so than the people who are exploiting and doing the damage to humanity, then you just keep living your life. Because it's not that hard. Just work harder. Nobody cares about your problems. Go back to work. Do a side hustle. Make more money. Have more sex. And you can already see the titles that I've given people in there. But if you think that you identify in that class of people, and you're angry at the video that I'm showing you right now, you're angry at a regular human being. You're angry at regular, normal, basic. I don't have money to exploit you. I don't have a business to exploit you. I don't even have the social power or influence. Like the things that I'm saying out here probably are going to get me ostracized from this society before they give me any kind of real power. I'm just telling you how I see this world literally while I'm being stepped on and crushed by every single system imaginable. And I'm hoping that you hear my cry. Yet the people that more times than not you're going to turn to are the people that you look up to or you're looking to validation from, which are the people at the top of this social pyramid, while you don't question their lack of humanity, but you look at me and you question mine. I need you to really start reevaluating. As good as your life is, as genuine, as much as you want to, oh, I don't do politics. I don't do that politics shit. I don't do that freaking, that crazy talk. Look at yourself and wonder why you don't go there. Wonder if you being a bystander, you neglecting participating in these important conversations and then changing your reality, taking responsibility for it, especially the places you're afraid of, how that's affecting the society that we live in. You regular ass individual. Because if you're doing your part in your world and your society and your reality, then this isn't going to mean anything to you other than help you better understand your role and your place in the world and how to better free yourself from the system that is just so sticky, that has caught so many people in it unconsciously. Now let me get into the two, really I want to say the most important factors. And this doesn't have anything to do with so-and-so is better than so-and-so. This has everything to do with the people who are most significantly affected and affecting this society. We're going to go with the invalidated, the bottom of society, the rejects, the mentally ill, the socially inept. I pray that's a word. There's so many words that I just like using. I'm a word guy. So I have to throw that in there. And there's a lot of words that I like to use. My body just tells me, oh, throw that there, throw that there. And I hope that they make sense. I really hope that I'm using the right words because I'm telling you, like, shit, there's some words that just come so good off the tongue. It's like, damn, this fits perfect for this quote. So hopefully you guys appreciate me at least trying to up my vocabulary, and hopefully, you could reading rainbow some of these words and add them to yours one day. But let's continue to talk about our socially, or forgive me, our invalidated corner expression of society. You got to remember, and before I even get too deep into this, I want to remind you that these are all plotted on like specific points of this triangle. The reason why these people are ignorant are because religion allows them depth of mind and capitalism allows them purpose. So if they already have an identity and they already have a job given to them by society and they're validated in that sense, what do they have to fight against society for? They're literally the perfect expression of what society wants to create a human being to be. Forgive me, I wish I would have explained that more in a while I was still talking about this, but now I have to give it to you because I'm going to do it for these other two as well. So this is plotted in between patriarchy and organized religion because these are the people who are mentally vulnerable. And forgive me, this isn't like these people are also mentally vulnerable, but these are the people who are mentally vulnerable and have to depend on the nothingness of the material. These people are also mentally vulnerable, but they have material to deal with, to play with, to mess around with in this life. It's going to play an important role. But these people are usually the ones that either get so rejected from society based on how they think and they're placed at the bottom of society, they aren't able to cope with how society and reality works. So they end up getting thrown off the bus, really rolled over by the bus. And the people who end up moving towards religion because they are mentally unstable and they need that kind of spiritual consistency to give them a place of grounding in this world. So for the people that think they're crazy, oh, you can run right back into the military. The people that think they're crazy, but they're not animals, let's run you right back into the church. So even if you're pushed out of society for a mental reason, a reason why you can't psychologically deal with the way that we live, there still is two systems to prey on your inability to handle yourself mentally. And the crazy thing is that many of these people that are mentally ill, that are socially rejected, if they could get the help that they need in this society, if they can be given the time to understand themselves and to heal and to grow in that psychological sense, instead of being thrown in institutions or being read off to titles and given all these types of drugs from a book that is so outdated still in its newest edition, these people could contribute so much depth to society on a level that society isn't willing to look at regular human beings with. Because capitalism allows us to just look at people for what they look like and what they're worth in a means of like resourcefulness rather than how deep people are, how extensive and complex the human soul is in a mind sense. So many of these people end up getting the crazy tag and they can't be effective participants in society because they aren't able to control themselves and their minds in a world that jolts your mind tool so much that if you're still able to function in this system the way that they indoctrinate us, the way that they condition us, you have to wonder if there's something wrong with you and not these people who aren't able to cope in a system of just pimped out abuse in every single direction and constant lack, constant scarcity, constant not having opportunity and resource to build, constant invalidation, constant rejection. How do you cope in that reality? And even the people who are socially validated, alcohol culture has destroyed the Western world, especially America. The abuse of alcoholism in America is ridiculous. And I'm so surprised that alcohol is not considered a drug. I'm surprised we say drugs and alcohol instead of just drugs and drugs. Because alcoholism has conquered American society. Conquered it so much that we've had to normalize it in general society as a means to people to escape dealing with the reality that they could address, that we could address together. But we choose not to because we've chosen means of escapism and disassociation and individualism to deal with our problems rather than being vulnerable with each other in groups effectively together and not allowing society to reject those of us who don't know how to understand ourselves immediately and can give these people a chance to understand themselves and contribute from a different angle, from a different perspective to a world of constantly changing and evolving human beings. Preying on the mind and the inability to understand the mind. And this is preying on the ignorance of having to understand the mind at such a depth. Yet this is also the ignorance of what truly goes down at the tops or at the extremes of society when people do find success in their avenue of life, but they don't find success in a general, like socially acceptable means. They do the most. And this is why I call these people the insanes. Because there is no connection to no genuine, forgive me, and I say God here, but there is no soul connection for these people. These people may find some of the greatest success in society. The psychopaths, the spiritually ill, the people who have just devoid themselves of humanity. Void is probably the better word to use for that one. But these people, the beasts of human nature, if you're able to structure your identity properly and navigate and configure your energy properly, effectively, you can win in the world that we live in. This is a power struggle, this world we live in, especially our society is an example of that. And for those people who are able to capitalize on that with systems, with awareness, with intention, these people are allowed to run the world that we live in because there is nothing that stops them, not even themselves, from accomplishing their goals and their desires. And take that in however angle you'd like to. But these people are insane and these people are invalidated. And remember, I think I touched on this maybe 5 minutes ago, but the reason why they're insane is because their ability to have capital or relation to the wealth of society allows them to not be conquered by their inability to conquer their brains, but allows them to conquer the world through the infinite depth or awareness of their brains. And they're able to use their brains at such a depth, at such a capacity, with such lack of humanity, that they can conquer the world, conquer people, conquer culture, colonize complete environments, and exploit souls for personal gain. Because there's no awareness of the God source that sits within everybody, that tells people we all came here complete and we came here to share ourselves with this world until we couldn't anymore. These are the people that have gone completely against that and have decided to take part like a black hole in sucking the energy, the genuine life force out of humanity to feed their ego, to feed the voids that sit within them because they refuse to address that they are intaking potent life energy and they aren't sharing or reciprocating any of it. These people don't have the capital to hide behind money, to hide behind materials, to hide behind social validation like many of these people do. The crazies in the crazy corner do. So they end up being so exposed that you either find them on the street or you find them in church with a bunch of other psychologically vulnerable, lost people who are looking for salvation through other people, through a collective, because they're afraid of missing out of this grand heaven that's supposed to happen after we die. But not just afraid of missing out on the grand heaven, but they're also afraid of being yanked into eternal damnation, because whatever you do in this one life somehow determines what happens to you for the next eternity. And there's no rhyme or reason to it. This was just the one time you got to be a human being, and this is going to be this is it. This is your one test. There is no infinite universe. There is no multiverse. There is no spiritual. There is no world in this infinity that actually gives people an opportunity to become through life and death, through every experience, through every year, through every opportunity they get to live and grow. There's just one test, and it's called humanity. And if you don't make it, then you're done forever. How effective you think that could be preying on the average, vulnerable, psychologically naive mind, especially one that understands how important it is to have a genuine moral outlook, or at least moral identity to genuine society. You have to be associated with something that's higher than yourself, but something that's more positive than yourself, because we don't trust ourselves as regular human beings to hold ourselves to an actual standard of goodness and genuine positivity. Because the world that we live in doesn't even allow us to believe in that. It's crazy. Okay, based on your life circumstances and how you've been allowed to be socialized in this demonic Star of David, that is going to determine a lot of how you express yourself, which is how I chose to write that in these blues over here. Now, you remember how the initial star works. If you are fortunate enough to go down the insane route, but you're the insane, ruthless route, your two career paths can be joining a gang and finding the power in the depths of the streets, or you can play in the gangs, the legal gangs of society, running with the corporation cults and the executive armies that rule the financial well-being of humanity. Mind you, this preys on the community of people that you know, the people that you serve, the people that you live around. This preys on everybody who is fortunate enough to call themselves a citizen under the general law that Americans fight to maintain. So the only difference between these two are the amount of people that they can impact and the side of society that they're on. These guys wear skinny jeans down to their ankles. These guys wear suits and bow ties or regular ties. Yet they're still gangbanging the same. These people are just doing it a whole hell of a lot more effectively. But if you don't allow yourself to draw the connection between the behaviors of these two, you'll never be able to even plot them close to each other on the same scale. Two ends of the spectrum, still insane. And the problem is this usually ends up being by choice or intentional, whether that is joining a specific fraternity, whether that is going to a specific school, being in a certain club. These are intentional. These usually end up being circumstantial as to why you join this particular type of group, to protect yourself or to gain some kind of power. Two sides of the same coin, really. Now back to this one. This is the psychosis side, the I can't control my brain side. And there's so many of us that are struggling. So I don't want to even make that like a joke or none of that shit, but this is the side we're on here. This, I like to say, if you have been more traumatized, beat down by the system, and that has resulted in psychological damage, I say that this is a circumstantial mental vulnerability or psychological vulnerability. Although you are not at fault for being traumatized and have your brain disordered. Now, society has left you, the individual, because we don't like communities or labor unions over here. You are responsible for taking care of yourself and healing yourself. And hopefully you're able to not only just be a mentally ill and a traumatized person, but you can be a healing mentally ill person who can contribute to a community of people who will probably go through the same things you have and are looking for the same salvation that you can provide them. Because you won't heal, you're either going to lose yourself in drugs, lose yourself in disassociation, or feel so hopeless that you need a community of people who validate you in destroying the rest of your life further, or you can go into the manipulation-induced psychosis, which if you aren't already vulnerable enough psychologically, you will be gaslit, manipulated, all types of enticed to join this community of people who also cannot get a hold of their mind tool, who also do not have a clear understanding of the reality they exist in, and they're dependent on other people to continue to feed them that version of reality that they're comfortable with, and at the same time they are looked at as a genuine person in. So they don't need to take responsibility of holding genuine thoughts in their head. They don't need to take responsibility of continuing to educate and learn and grow psychologically. They can just depend on somebody else to do that for them and understand that any problem they have they can't understand, we can suspend to something else because we don't need to take responsibility. We just need to feel good about ourselves. At the end of the day, that's what it is. That's why people take drugs. That's why people have too much sex. We want to feel good about ourselves. And we don't know how to do it internally. So we depend on the external, whether that be a person, whether that be a material, whether that be a thing, and exploit the validation that that thing gives us conditionally. Because we don't know how to tap into the unconditional validation that only we can give ourselves. You're at mercy of the demons of the world, or you're at mercy of the demons of the soul. But these guys will protect you. because they are also just as afraid, if not more afraid than you are. Now let's look at the individuals who probably aren't genuinely like impacted negatively by this system. But hey, they are still impacted. And these are the people that have the greatest opportunity to impact the world that they live in. And the people who are grown ignorant to the general workings of the world are either working specifically for themselves, a world, a reality, and decisions that only complement themselves and the development of their life because they don't care about everybody. Everybody's got their own problems to deal with, so they should just deal with them. And then we have the people with genuine intentions for the world. But more times than not, this is born out of naivety. Naivete, I think that's the word. And ignorance, more than this is born out of a genuine nature to care for the world. Because many people who know this reality of the society we live in and see how overwhelmingly powerful and control and just poorly managed this reality is it's almost ritual to just lose hope. All of it. So many of these people have genuine souls and genuine intentions for not just themselves, but their communities and their world, but they are just too ignorant to the true demonic inner workings of this system that is destroying the opportunity of just the average man to be able to know themselves, love themselves, care for themselves, and do the same for the people around them. You know, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes it's difficult to have hope, man, and to believe in a future that we're all really participating, we're all taking real responsibility for. It's really difficult to believe in that sometimes. And it's not because it's not possible, it's not because it's not just right in front of us that it can happen. It's because the people have given up on themselves time and time and time again. And the people, it almost seems like, don't care enough for themselves to live in a reality that can complement them just as much as they give their souls to this reality to keep existing. And I hope you can tag back in my last video and really reference when I was speaking about reconfiguring over creation, because everything that we need is already here. All the people that we need, all the ideas that we need, all the information, all the wealth, the abundance that we're somehow trying to manifest out of thin air, it's here right now. But it's how we reconfigure ourselves and how we decide that everybody deserves to not only have enough, but to have an opportunity to create everything that they can for themselves without obstructing other people's opportunity to have for themselves and to provide for the people that they came here to live and love with. It has to grow bigger than yourself at the end of the day. Your purpose, your awareness, as ignorant as you can be, as angry as you can be at society, you have to remember that you are a drop in not a pond, but an ocean. Yet every bit of your soul and your individual energy is impacting the exact color of that ocean. You play so much more of an important role in this society, and keeping you ignorant is a tool. Keeping you afraid, keeping you angry and hostile towards people who need your help, who need your ability, your intelligence, and your skills to create a world that actually allows them to be the human beings that they've always been, but this society has never validated them to be. We deserve that. Our kids' generation deserves that. The world deserves to see us at our peak, and at our peak not because somebody waited 2,000 years, 3,000 years to come out of thin air and save us, because we decided to wake up for each other and for ourselves because we were tired of living like this. And we're tired of seeing people only result to themselves because they cannot participate here. We allow people to keep living because they keep believing that there's people who care for humanity here. And if those people don't have Bentleys and Rolls Royces and 25-story mansions, then it's okay. But if they're speaking a truth that resonates with our heart, then we give them the respect. We give them intention. We give them an opportunity to show us what they came here to do. And we try at least, because it would make a hell of a lot more sense if we tried 100 times to create a Black Wall Street. If we tried 100 times to do an American Revolution, we tried 100 times to end capitalism, and just kept on being stumped at, well, I guess the system does work, so I mean, why would we be fighting against it? Why are we so afraid to even start once? So hopefully this stuff starts, breaking down barriers and crashing those great walls in your head, because we need each other. And we can't even be here for each other to any extent if we don't even give ourselves an opportunity to be here for ourselves. Know thyself and know your role. We got to do some big shit on this planet, bro. If you're a part of my team, bro, I won't let you slack. We got a whole entire world to change. Believe that shit.